Welcome to the virtual reception for the Art League of Germantown's 8th annual invitational exhibition being held at the Kentlands Mansion in Arts Barn Galleries. I'm Thom Germer, the current president of the Art League of Germantown, and I'd like to start by thanking the city of Gaithersburg for giving us the opportunity to have this exhibition again and for figuring out how to make it work during the pandemic. The Art League of Germantown meets on the first Wednesday of every month from September through May. Our meetings, of course, have gone virtual since last April, but we look forward to someday returning to our regular in-person meetings at our home at the Black Rock Center of the Arts in Germantown. Our meetings usually have an artist speaking about their work or their technique, and they sometimes feature demonstrations, and sometimes they are about various aspects of art business. We encourage guests to join us, so if you're an artist or an art lover in Montgomery or Frederick counties or elsewhere, please come join us. Every year we have 2 shows held at the Black Rock Center for the Arts, one in the fall and one in the spring, and we have this exhibition. We provide a nice opportunity for artists in the area to share their work and to get to new ideas. With that, I would like to hand over the microphone to Jaree Donnelly from the city of Gaithersburg. Jaree?
Thanks, Thom. Hello, my name is Jaree Donnelly, and I am both the acting gallery coordinator and the arts education coordinator for the city of Gaithersburg. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to this, the first virtual art reception with the Art League of Germantown. We have enjoyed many beautiful evenings gathering in person at the mansion to enjoy the ALOG exhibitions in the past. But this unusual year continues to challenge us to find new ways of safely sharing art. So here we are, coming to you in the comfort of your home. We miss the fellowship of our artist receptions, but we are so grateful that technology allows us to still be together. The first year I invited ALOG to exhibit at the Kentlands Mansion, I had hoped this show might become an annual tradition, and the city is so happy that this partnership continues to flourish. ALOG is exactly the kind of group we enjoy working with: professional, organized, and diverse in membership, in genres, in artist mediums. We have invited them to return year after year because they put on a great exhibit and frankly are so fabulous to work with. While ALOG has traditionally invited a juror to select the artwork for their show, this year I was honored to be invited by ALOG to curate the work instead. And I'm grateful that ALOG members made it incredibly easy on me. The work was, of course, the usual high quality for ALOG, but it was as if they all worked together ahead of time, selecting the pieces to bring in for the show. Curating an exhibit can be a bit of an art in itself, and for those of us that manage galleries, like artists honing their skills over time, we also learn how to create exhibits that speak to the visitor. For this exhibit, I was able to easily find a flow rooted in color, texture, and subject matter. I hope that the design of the exhibit helps you enjoy the work even more. The images will be presented in the order they are in the gallery, so it's just as if you were walking through. For those that may not be aware, the city houses 3 galleries in our facilities. While ALOG has shown at the Mansion Gallery previously, because of the circumstances with the pandemic, we were able to offer ALOG both the Mansion and the Arts Barn galleries to show their work this year. Not only did this afford us the opportunity to show more of ALOG's beautiful work, but also allowed 3D work to be displayed, something that has not been possible at the Mansion. We know that with our limited time today, the images may move a little quicker than you would like, and we invite you to visit the alog.org website to spend more time with the pieces that intrigue you the most. The full collection will be housed there. We are also featuring a portion of the work on the city's website and on our social media channels. While we are happy that we can share the artwork with you virtually today, we do know that there is still not anything like seeing it in person to really appreciate the pieces. And as someone who photographs artwork for artist portfolios, I have firsthand knowledge that images can only translate so much. Being able to walk up close, move about to different angles, and take in the details of the piece are best done in person. So if you're in the area and ready to safely venture out, we invite you to make a private appointment to come by and tour the exhibit. You can call the Arts Barn or the Mansion or email me at artgalleries@gaithersburgmd.gov, and myself or one of our staff will be happy to meet you. We do ask that you wear a mask and social distance and limit the size of your group to just your immediate household, but we've been able to safely share our galleries with you by utilizing some of these healthy protocols. And I would not be a good gallery coordinator if I did not tell you what to do if you fall in love with something you see. Again, you may call me at the Arts Barn or email me at artgalleries@gaithersburgmd.gov, and I will walk you through the process of how to acquire a piece for your collection. When you surround yourself with pieces that bring you joy, make you think, or touch you in some way, it enriches your everyday and it supports the arts in our community in more ways than you can imagine. So don't worry, the contact information will be on the slide at the end of the presentation, and we're also going to add it to the comments on this live stream for you to refer to. And you can also find it on the City of Gaithersburg website. So if you didn't get it written down, no problem. Thank you again for joining us today. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Bill Mapes, ALOG Special Show Coordinator for the annual Kentlands exhibit. Bill is an exceptional portrait artist. I am lucky to have him as one of my Arts Barn instructors, and he has so graciously given his time annually to help bring about this exhibit for many years. And most of all, he is truly one of the best people I know. He's going to be acting as our MC today. Bill, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Jaree. Hello and welcome everyone to our Art League of Germantown 8th Annual Art Exhibit at the Kentlands Mansion. The exhibit is titled Musings Over Time, how apropos for the past year especially, and beyond that as well. The Art League of Germantown has championed the quality standard of art in Montgomery County since its founding in the early 1980s. As mentioned, this is our 8th exhibit at the Kentlands complex and our biggest event so far. We are privileged to have an outstanding membership of dedicated and talented artists, as you will soon see. But first, I want to introduce our 5-member panel, selected from our membership for their knowledge of their mediums and of art in general. They're going to be commenting on individual pieces as we go along. First, I want to introduce Matt Baker. He specializes in oils. Matt, join us. Marylou Bono, acrylics. Deb Cohan, watercolor. Carol Moore, printmaking. And Lynne Oakes, oils. Lynne, by the way, is the founder of the Art League of Germantown and is in part responsible for its longevity and success. As we view the artwork in the virtual gallery, our panel members will speak about one piece on display from each of our 23 participating artists. There are a total of 78 pieces of wall art and 3D sculpture in this year's exhibit. The artwork will be shown in catalog order, as Jaree mentioned, with the title of the work and the artist's name. Comments and questions from our audience can be posted on Facebook, and we will try to address them at the end of the presentation. I know you will enjoy the diversity and quality of our artwork. So let's begin. And so as it happens, our first catalog work will also be commented on by panelist Matt Baker. Matt, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bill. For some reason, my video just went off, so I'll be talking off screen. The piece, the first example of these wonderful pieces of artwork is a little gem that was actually created by Laurie Hartman. who is a very creative glass artist. The name of it is Rainbow Stripes. And what I found that was very interesting in this piece, it's actually a 10 by 10 square with fused glass that is opaque. It gives a very soft feel to the image itself, but in her description of her work, she calls herself her design aesthetic in a geometric and straight lines. Essentially, she likes to do things that are linear and that has some type of structure to it. But with this, I find that the multiple colors that she has used in this creates a dichotomy to me of the fact that you have a very structured piece enclosed in this nickel frame that has a burst of color that creates a fantasy feel to it. I encourage you folks to come down to the Arts Barn and take a look at it and see exactly what I'm talking about. As Jaree said, the video does not show justice to all art pieces. Back to you, Bill.
All right, moving on. We're going to cycle through. And now we come to our next piece that will be commented on by panelist Carol Moore.
Hi, Bill. Thank you. This particular piece is by Jean Finkelman, and it is titled Good Omen. And the most important thing to understand about this painting is the size. When you see it in person, you would be engaging with a 30-inch bright red cardinal. The overall size of the piece is 20 by 30 inches. This cardinal in all of its glory has been placed in a deep saturated blue background with swirls of lighter bluish white clouds that almost seem to create a wind that ruffles and lifts the feathers of the crest of this bird's head. And another thing I really like about it is you would think that the cardinal would be looking towards something, but he actually has his gaze right on the viewer, which is very captivating when you're looking at a piece. I think that Jean did a really great job using a full range of tones in the reds. And this painting is, to me, as much of a painting about a cardinal as it is about the color red. I should also mention, though, that the beautiful details on the branch, which may be difficult for you to see, maybe you can see it, but it brings out the reflections from the skies and in the reds, and the branch alone is such a beautiful part of this painting. I did get a chance to talk to Jean about her painting, and she shared with me that the reference photo that she used to paint this piece was actually taken by a very good friend of hers, Deb Cohan, who she feels is a very talented photographer. She also said that she learned that cardinals are known to be, or thought to be, a good omen. And if you have one that comes to your feet, or it brings you good luck. She has a pair of cardinals that frequent her feeder, and she feels they make her very happy. And I know personally, I have cardinals that visit my feeder, and it doesn't matter how many times I see them. When I see them, I get excited. There's something about that burst of red that appears. So if you can imagine a 30-inch cardinal in your living room, what a statement that would make. Jean does not always work this large, but she found a great sale on canvases and decided that she just couldn't resist to paint this painting on a large scale. And I'm glad that she did, because this piece is glorious, and it's because of its size and that the color red just commands you. And so I applaud Jean for her work. It really is a very nice painting, and I hope you get a chance to see it in person.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
And now we have our third panelist, Marylou Bono, who is going to not only speak about this piece, but the next piece in progression. And these are two of my favorite pieces in the show. I really like them. Marylou, take it on.
Thanks, Bill. Hello, everyone. The next two pieces I'm going to speak about both have something in common. They're hung over the mantelpieces in the main gallery at the mansion, and it really adds to their impact, having them placed up high and very noticeable when you walk into the gallery. The one you're seeing now is by the artist Nola Angevine. She works mostly in watercolor. She paints serene, natural habitats that are very appealing. Now is a little different, and it showcases a timely message, something very introspective, I think. Nola and I had an opportunity to talk a little bit about the work, and she told me that the cropping of the colored square was a significant part of the piece, and that it represented what to keep and what to let go of. When I look at it, I think of the vast white space as everything outside of the self. The colored space invites waves of hope and life using the soothing colors and renewable colors of nature. You can see sunshine, earth, water, sky. Again, his placement above the mantelpiece really lets the minimalism of the piece shine. And I think it's a personal statement from a very thoughtful artist. Bill? Or Tom, I guess.
Yeah, we'll move on.
This is a Bougainvillea. It's by Ganga Talasia, who is a newer member of ALOG. And I really enjoyed being introduced to her art by seeing the powerful colors that she used to show this plant. If you've not seen it, it's a very lush climbing bush with large flowers and usually grows in warmer climates. So I don't really think we see it around here all that often. But again, it's in front of the on top of one of the mantelpieces, and it kind of shouts at you when you walk in the room because it's so brilliant. I think it's maybe 20 by 20. It may be a little bigger than that, but it's very impressive when you see it. I think the blues and the magentas are happy and they want to be noticed. So that makes you take another look at it. I think you can feel her leaves swaying in the breeze. And I really like the way that Ganga showed them bleeding into shadow. It's a simple yet intense subject, and it works because of the boldness of the colors. And it's a very well done piece. Bill?
Thank you, Marylou.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a piece that's going to be commented on by Jaree Donnelly.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm back. I am really excited that I can speak to you today about this wonderful piece entitled Yes, Yellow by fellow photographer Keith Mounts. I've known Keith for many years and had the pleasure of chatting with him about photography in general and his work in particular. I think I have a special affinity for Keith's work because there's a peacefulness to his photography that resonates with me. And he's got the goods. His work is technically sound, something that comes from honing his skills through constant practice. I can share a recent example with you of how this is. During the pandemic, I have absolutely loved that he challenged us daily on Facebook with ideas for creating images. But I think that he sort of has seen it as a way to keep challenging himself also and engaging those skills. He has a style and a point of view that is really unique to him, and I can almost always identify his pieces from those of other photographers. Keith really loves nature and organic forms, and this floral piece, Yes, Yellow, is a very fine example from his portfolio. While the colors are warm and bright and saturated and really draw you in from across the room with their intensity, there's still a serenity to the image that comes from experiencing that natural world. Macro photography is not easy to master. It requires a steady hand and skill with handling depth of field. Keith shows his mastery in this image. The spiky yellow center is sharp as a tack, while the fluttery pink and purple petals are soft and even a little out of focus. It is a juxtaposition that draws your eye right in and certainly makes me fall in love with the colors even more. I also love that the yellow center of the flower is a little off center. The lack of symmetry is really important. This image would not be nearly as strong if it were symmetrical. Keith has also developed a unique way of presenting his work. It is not under glass, as is typical of photography. Glass can make it hard to see a piece. Reflections may obscure it, and the glass can take away some of the detail and soften the image, especially if you happen to use anti-glare glass. He's worked out a system for the image to be protected with a coating, but it does not need to be under glass. And this allows the viewer to enjoy it even more. This particular piece is in a simple gray frame, so it's all about the photo. It's sort of medium-sized, and it's incredibly affordable for a collector of fine art photography. And just a last note, Keith is actually a published photographer. His book, Spirit Beckons, is really wonderful. And you can find it online actually at most of the major booksellers. So, check it out if you can. Bill, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. And now we come to two pieces that are going to be commented on by Lynne Oakes. Lynne, take it on.
Okay. Well, sometimes a piece just hits you in the eye, and where to start talking about it takes a moment. This is one of those. The artist, Jaree Donnelly, has done a piece that is mostly acrylic, but she calls it mixed media. The size of it is 24 by 24. I think mentioning size is important. If you hold your arms out to 2 feet wide, just do that wherever you are watching this from. Realize how big this piece is, and that because of that, it will have even more impact. The colors in this work are extremely bright and clean and attracting. The yellow is right near its complement, a complementary color in this case is purple. And those are colors on the color wheel that are opposite each other. And when they are close to each other in a piece of artwork, they set each other off. And you can see that from this. She also has the primary colors in there, which are red, yellow, and blue. And all of that makes it a very visual, dynamic statement. I think that the smaller groupings of the flowers provide just the right touch to the larger areas she has there. And of course, you see to the right, the profile of the beauty with her thoughts. I asked her all about her, what the backstory was. And she said it was created very intuitively, and that most of her figurative paintings are done that way. During the process and at later stages, she finds objects, faces, and elements that she can develop. She said when she was creating this, her husband came into the studio and he found the face in it. And so she developed this beautiful lady with lots of energy, beautiful dreams and thoughts. She goes on to say that it constantly reminds her that the beauty of your thoughts is the real beauty that you have with yourself. The beauty of a woman is not in her clothes or her figure. Her beauty, beautiful thoughts, build beautiful souls. I hope that you, if you are in this area, you can actually go see this in person. Okay, next piece. I have the pleasure of doing two pieces back to back that are just pretty terrific. Lee Partington, I have known for years as a ceramic artist, but she's also a painter, as you can see. And this is an oil pastel. She told me it was 16 inches by 19 inches with the frame. And I think as you look at it, there's so much to see because of the motion of the lines in it. If you think about a landscape will usually have a horizon line and trees, and there's a certain quiet serenity to it. But when you put in lines that are going in the diagonal and wiggling in their form, you get a tremendous sense of motion, which you can see as you look at this. She told me the backstory was that she had gone to a model session where the model, who is one of our very well-known local models, Shadia, had come with a costume and a story. The story of a sea siren is something perhaps most of you know, which is that these sea sirens were supposed to have lured sailors onto the rocks and to their death by singing music and playing music that was so beautiful they couldn't help but go in that direction until that was the end of them. A sea siren is also half bird and half woman, which you see Lee has accomplished with feathery looks all around, as well as her face. I think when you see a face in a painting or a work of art, your attention goes immediately there. And I think when you look at this, you'll agree that that happened when you first looked at it. And in that way, perhaps we could say that this sea siren is seducing you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Lynn. Now we come to a piece by one of our panelists. When we set the panelists up, the criteria was that they were to pick out pieces of 3 other artists to talk about. but we also wanted each one of the panelists to talk about an individual piece of theirs that was in the show. And this is Deb Cohan's choice. So Deb, tell us about your piece.
Okay. I always find it difficult to talk about myself and my work, but here goes. In my painting, I've always tried to combine my two largest interests, which are water media and travel. As a person of the Vietnam era, Southeast Asia has always fascinated me. I heard from my friends who returned from the war stories of horror, but also stories of the beauty of Southeast Asia. And I always wondered, what happens to these places after the war? So the image that, and I do work from photography, so the image from this painting was taken along the Mekong River in Laos. It was just below the site of a cave. The cave was filled with thousands and thousands of Buddha images, small sculptures from an inch or two high to 5 feet high. It was just an amazing sight. And it was an attraction not only for tourists, but locals would go there just to spend some time and have a little bit of peace. So while I was climbing down from this cave, I saw these two boats where fishermen had taken a moment to stop and perhaps find a little bit of peace. So that's the kind of the backstory. People always ask me with watercolor, how do I get such intense colors? And the way I work is with very, very thin layers of paint. And I go over and over and over, excuse me, I go over and over and over the painting. What happens with watercolor is because it is so transparent, it allows the color of what is beneath to reflect through the top layers of paint. I knew this was going to happen. My voice goes crazy. So that's the process. In planning this, I wanted to use a very limited palette. I wanted the blues to reflect peace, but I also wanted to reflect some red, which is a more violent color. I wanted to talk about the troubles that had been in this very, very peaceful place. And maybe it represents some of the spilt blood, who knows? But I didn't want those troubles to be forgotten in this very peaceful painting. I used diagonals to further create that sense of tension, as Lynn just mentioned, that is what they tend to do. So, I invite you to ask questions about this, questions of yourself. We have two boats that are not moored at a pier. How did the fishermen get onto shore? What are those little pieces of bamboo? What are they moored to? How does this all work for people who are, again, in Southeast Asia? I find them the most inventive people and wonderful, warm people. So please, create your own stories. And that's also the purpose of my work. This piece is 18 by 24 framed.
Very nice, Deb. Thank you. Okay, well, this is where I have an opportunity to talk about one of my 4 pieces in the exhibit. This painting was done from a model pose staged at the Open Hood College Portrait Group a year ago. It's a group of artists that come and paint for a small fee. It's very affordable, and it's a good venue for all area artists to get work in outside of their own studios. This model, Natalia, first and foremost, is one of the elite models in our area. She works the artist rather than the reverse, and that is in turn tends to bring out the best in us. This painting most illustrates my pursuit of color. It is brilliant in its intensity and contrast. Over the past few years, I've shied away from the normal face-on view of the portrait subject. In this painting, as in many of my recent works, I've added attention to the subject by looking upward, which creates some unusual perspective and wonderful angles to pull in the viewer's attention. As a portrait painter, I have 3 criteria that I self-impose on myself. First, the portrait must be painted well. Secondly, the portrait must have a likeness of the subject. And third, and most importantly, the subject must have an essence of their being, that inner self that shows who they are as a person. I try and draw that out in every painting. If it doesn't meet the last criteria, it's not successful to me. I love painting people. They bring diversity and life to the canvas for me. My wife often comments to others, we live with lots of people. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol Moore, who will comment on our next piece.
Thank you, Bill. It's an honor to talk about this piece by Pat Choquette. Its title is Surreal View of the Falls, and it measures 14.5 inches wide by 26.5 inches deep. And I have visited Great Falls in Virginia many times over the years, and Pat has showed them to me in a way that I've never seen or imagined. When I first experienced this painting, it felt like a very calm dream or maybe perhaps a memory. And I could even somewhere in the background of my mind hear the sound of the falls come very quietly. And the warm horizon took me down through the cool blue waters where finally my eyes rested on a soft, warm mist. Pat's composition uses a large rock structure at the bottom of the painting, which serves to establish a strong base, and it is an important element that helps create the depth of the scene that works with the many layers of the falls that zigzag down towards the viewer. I think that Pat really did a good job balancing those layers with color. First, you see the soft sky, the saturated warms of the horizon, followed by the rich blues that are brought to you by the vertical white lines of the falling water. And then you are rewarded as you land in that same soft, warm mist that you started with when you first experienced the sky. I recently spoke with Pat about this painting, and she shared that it was inspired by a trip to Great Falls in Virginia to paint plein air, or in other words, on location. So she grabbed her paints, she grabbed her canvas, and she went to plein air to paint plein air in Great Falls. And she said as she sat there taking on the scene, she was listening to the cascading water run through the layers of the falls and was struck by a rhythmic pattern, and it was natural. And she said that pattern developed in her painting. And while there, she said she experienced a surreal cloud-like appearance from the water. And when she looked along the horizon, she could see the sun blanketing the horizon, which brought this calm and meditative feel to the scene. I really love Pat's color palette choices. They're calm, and they use warm colors like Naples yellow and burnt sienna and beautiful magentas and cadmiums and deep violets, all juxtaposed by the lovely cool blues like Prussian blue and phthalo blue and turquoise. They're just beautiful, beautiful, calm colors, and I love them together. I really like Surreal View to the Falls and the way that it makes me feel. And I think that I will likely think of Pat's painting when I visit the falls in the future. It'll stick with me. And I think it would be wonderful hanging someplace where it would remind you of her experience and of your experience at the falls. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Now we come to something a little bit more unique, a triptych. 3 paintings that Deb is now going to speak to. Deb?
Again, these paintings are can be purchased either separately or as a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous grouping. And I will speak about them as a whole, as a group. As a person who loves color, I was immediately drawn to this grouping of paintings. I just, it's just so happy making. What Beverly uses is that she paints her own paper. She tints her own papers and uses acrylic as well as hand tinted papers. And in doing so, she can create the colors that she really likes. The colors of the Caribbean are what is she's trying to project here, but these pieces could be almost anywhere in the world. I love the geometric shapes that she has, the juxtapositions of the cool blues and the hot, hot, hot reds and oranges, the repetition of those geometric shapes. And if you look really carefully into each of those shapes, there is some kind of pattern or texture that you know, the closer you go, the more that you see. And these colors and the shapes and the rhythms of the boats and the rhythms of and repetition of the fishing huts just keep your eye moving throughout the paper, and it's just striking. I think that each one of these paintings is beautiful in its own, but as a group, wow, it just knocked my socks off.
I agree. Thank you, Deb. And here we come to another piece for Deb to comment on. Deb,
Okay.
do it.
I've always loved Margaret's work. And I'm very, very fortunate to own a small piece that she's made. She creates works using largely polymer clay, and she uses a variety of techniques. One of the techniques that she uses is called caning, which is creating tubes of clay, which contain layer after layer of color. She then slices those to create some of these amazing textures. And many of us were fortunate enough to see Margaret's presentation. I believe it was last year at one of our Art League of Germantown meetings. So there's all kinds of wonderful presentations that we have. In this work, and when I think about Margaret's work, I think about two things. I think about repetition and I think about organic shapes. Nature is very often kind of the inspiration for what she's doing. This piece is called sepal vessel, and a sepal is that usually green casing that is found that protects the bud of a flower. And after the flower opens, it provides a support for the petals of the flower. In this piece, Margaret has created the sepal from the layers of lightly colored polymer clay. And she repeats this theme in the base, which I'm sure that she has created as well through a more metallic looking clay. The bud of the flower has the repetition of the caning technique that I just spoke to. Repetition again occurs in the wire that she's embedded to encircle the bud, using undulating shapes that are repetitive and yet varied. And at the top near the opening of the vessel, she's again embedded wire, but we have the delight of seeing little tiny bits of polymer clay reflecting those colors that she's used in the bud. I just think that this is just a marvelous piece, and I just love the subtlety of the colors that she uses, the slight changes in values to get the textures that just say it all just so beautifully.
Thank you, Deb. Well said. Now we come to another piece where one of our panelists will give her insight into her work. Take it away, Lynne.
My insight into myself. Okay. This piece came about because I was at a local cafe and I was looking over the shoulders of my family that was with me, and at the window was this young woman, and she appeared to be waiting for somebody, and I couldn't stop looking at her because she was so striking. So I, in a very sneaky manner, took a picture or two or three of her, and over the shoulders of my companions. And I worked from that when I returned to the studio. Many of my paintings are of people who are doing something pleasurable. They're out by themselves, or perhaps they're with a friend talking to them. Later on, by the way, a gentleman joined her, and but before he did, this was her demeanor. But I like the pleasurable feeling of observing people who are in conversation with each other. I always notice that. Communication's a big deal with me, and doing it well is a challenge for us all, but important, of course. I also, besides just her demeanor, very thoughtful, I liked the way she had laced her fingers under her chin. And she was wearing something that was like dark brown. Her hair was brown. The surroundings that she was in were actually very neutral. And so I didn't try to do anything super colorful in here because I felt that the more monochromatic choice of colors lent itself to, to the mood that I was trying to accomplish. Around this time, you may not be able to see it that well here, but in some of my paintings, I had started to allow drips of paint. If you look at across the bottom under the table and going down from her sweater, that's what I let it do. And for me, it creates a visual texture that kind of mimics her 3 bracelets and her fingers, but it also doesn't have, a specific look to it. I wanted the specifics to be around her face and her body. And so there's a little still life in front of her that kind of goes back and forth in terms of looking at the painting. Also, something about art that's very interesting, I think, is that when you look at a painting with a person in it, wherever they are looking, you tend to look there also. And so the name of this show, the theme for it is Musings Over Time. And I had to put this painting in the show because to me, that was sort of quintessential to support the theme. That's pretty much it. So back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get some thoughts from Carol on the next piece. Carol?
Thank you, Bill. This piece is by Kendra Biddick. It's titled Meditations, and it is approximately 25 inches by 38 inches, and it is a fiber art. I have always loved fiber art, and in particular, I've always been a fan of Kendra's work. She just has a unique voice in her work, and I've seen a lot of fiber art, but hers is quite unique. My first response when I saw this is I was very intrigued when I first saw it. It spoke a language that I didn't understand, and that called me to take a closer look. And I was looking at the black lines of the black fibers, and they seemed to be moving and to have a rhythm, but that rhythm was evolving and changing as I was looking at the piece. And at times they even seemed to be marching. And then I finally decided, this is almost as if it's breathing. The irregular border of the white fibers brings a life and an energy to the overall piece, and it creates a soft background that the black strings seem to move through, but they're still part of that background. It's very organic, and I really like that. I did get a chance to speak with Kendra about this piece, and she told me, and this surprised me because it's not where I went when I first saw it. She told me that it was inspired by her regular meditation practice, where she draws with black ink on white paper. And she said that this piece was an experiment in doing a similar meditation on a larger scale, only with fiber. Kendra also explained that the black merino wool that she used to create those black fibers started out straight, but that they become wiggly as the fibers interlock and ratchet closer together when they are agitated with soap and water when they're being felted. Those who aren't familiar with the very, very, very basics of fiber art, you start with dry fibers made from sheep's wool or different animals' wool, and then when you wash them with soap and water, they shrink and the fibers link together, and that's how they're created. So Kendra did explain that, laying out that wool and then agitating it with the soap and water changed it, and that became meditative. The white fiber in this piece is mostly Romney wool, which is a variety of sheep wool, with a little bit of merino, which is actually a little lighter than the Romney wool, so that the background has some modulation. And Kendra did say that if you can, you may not be able to make it out in this picture or not, but there are fine dark gray details on the outer edges that were stitched on after the felting process with embroidery floss. This piece, Meditations, it drew me to take a closer look because of its organic movement. I like that it had an unknown origin. At times I thought, in a way, it reminded me of some cave drawing, something of the past that I wasn't ever going to be privy to, a language that I may never understand. But that was okay. I like it. And I'm drawn to it, and I'm curious about it. And that's what art does. And fiber work has a special tactile nature. You want to touch it, and you can touch it. Fiber works can often be washed and cleaned, and I think they're meant to be touched. And that is something I really like about the medium, and the organic nature is something that I like about Kendra's work.
Thank you, Carol. You're a wonderful, wonderful observation. This proves the point that there's something for everybody in every piece of art. Once again, we invite Deb in for her commentary on this piece of art. Take it, Deb.
Okay, so Roxanne creates collages using found papers. She's so talented at creating dimension in her work through subtle gradations in the color she selects. If you look, for example, at the arm, it seems to be turning a little bit based on the darker blue that she has. There's also so many interesting images embedded in the background here that you could spend forever looking at it. There are buildings, there are street scenes, there are windows. I found one building that to me looks like it may be upside down. And that contributes to the emotion and feeling of confusion in this piece. One wonders about the maps that are on the face mask and her arm, their flight paths. Is this questioning, where am I going? What am I doing in this class of 2000? When I spoke to Roxanne about this picture, she said that it was inspired by her daughter graduating last year. An unexpected pandemic affected her and all of the other senior students in the country. She was trying to render the feeling of uncertainty, fear, confusion, and happiness all at the same time. She says what she didn't know, that she was also expressing her own feelings about the whole situation as well. I think we can all identify with those feelings as the impact of our current situation sends us into turmoil, and can only imagine what it's like for someone that is on the brink of a new life as a graduate. I think Roxanne has certainly conveyed this emotion so beautifully.
Thank you, Deb. Now we come to a piece that will be talked about by the artist. Matt, tell us about your piece. Well, I don't hear from Matt, but I can talk about this piece. I love this piece. This heritage fence is probably taken up near Frederick County, near the Monocacy River, because Matt paints up there a lot. I love the angles and the colors that he uses, and this impact of this fence just takes you right into the background where you're just dispersed into this big meadow. It's just lovely. He does so much with paint and does so much with the out of doors. I just have a great feel of nature when I see his work. It's always well done. Um, he is a master at what he does, and I really enjoy his work. We'll move on. Maryvale Falls is another piece that will be talked about by Matt. Are you with us, Matt?
Yes, I lost my connection and I just got back on, and I'm still having trouble finding the video. Which one are we on right now?
Maryvale Falls, Craig Higgins. But I didn't have any trouble stepping in and talking about your wonderful work.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here, but I lost you guys totally. Okay, I'm back here. If you could give me 1 second. Tom, do you think you could go back, go to the next one and then catch me? And then come back, or do you want to hold on for a second while I pull it up in a different way? I guess
Well,
Tom isn't here listening.
This is the other side of the tracks, which Thom Germer has created. And I can't wait to hear Tom talk about his own piece.
Sure, I can step in. We'll come back for Matt. That's a commentary on Craig's piece. This piece, the other side of the tracks, is my latest photographic sculpture. It's a 360 panorama taken at Harper's Ferry under the train trestle. There's a view of the Catholic Church on the hill through the structure, which I don't think you can see. It's barely visible in this view. You really have to be able to walk around it to see this piece. I've been wanting to make more irregular solids than the ones I've made before. I started by making cubes and moved to more complicated solids that had, fun names like cuboctahedron or a rhombic dodecahedron, and even something called a tetratoid. But this is the first where I sort of invented my own shape. The top and bottom vertices have the 90-degree angles of a cube, but I twisted their axes to create this more irregular shape. The sides, though, are still the same shape, so it wasn't like I had to cut out each piece separately or with different shapes and dimensions. The only way to really see this, though, is to see it in person, and so that you can walk around it. Is Matt ready?
Yeah, I'm back. Oh. Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what's going on, but I guess I did pay my bill this year, this month. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, getting to Craig Higgins' piece called Maryville Falls, MD, I had a chance to talk with him for a second. And essentially, what happened here is that he took this photo while attending a wedding some time ago. And this was close to the site of the wedding, which is one of the castles close to Lutherville. It's a wedding castle out there, I believe. And it was during the fall. And what I really like about this piece is the juxtaposition of the calmness in the background, the horizontal feeling that you have where the rock is up above, and then this diagonal group of white that comes down with a feel of the rushing water. I think he was able to create that by actually dropping I'm not a photographer, so I guess it was the aperture so that he could kind of slow down the movement of the water to make it feel to capture the feeling of the movement. As you know, if you do it, if you take a regular photograph, all that water would actually be very flat because of the brightness against the dark. But he did a very good job of doing that. It creates a feeling to me of this whole thing of nature progressing in a way that it makes you feel like, you know, time goes on, even though there's something that is very important going on in humans' lives, such as a wedding that is, you know, probably just a 180-degree rotation of the camera would show that particular activity. The piece is quite striking because of the fact that the brightness of the white against the dark areas of the rocks, and it's a very nice piece. It's a small piece. It's 8 by 10, and it has the feeling that would really be nice within anyone's decor. That's about it for that one.
Thank you, Matt. There's a lot of majestic energy in that piece.
Yes, it does. Yes, it is.
Okay, this piece by Virginia Chandler will be talked about by Lynne Oakes.
Okay. The size of this piece, the frame size is 18 by 24. And so the actual canvas is 12 by 18 because Virginia told me the frame was 3 inches wide. So hopefully I did the math right. At any rate, I do think size is important in a piece of artwork. So if you can kind of conceive of, you know, about how big that is, of course, better, you should go and see the real thing. Okay. At the time that Virginia painted this, she said she was experimenting with atmosphere. She started the painting, and the more she painted, the more it seemed to her to develop into this snow scene with a feel of yesteryear about it. The older cars parked along the street, the awnings over the entrances, she felt all gave it a feeling of being an older time, not modern times. The painting's composition is quite symmetrical, not in 100%, but quite symmetrical in that, by the way, symmetry, as we know, means to each side of a center line, things are the same. Like if you have a house with columns, it is usually a symmetrical affair. So when you have a symmetrical piece like this, it draws you right into the middle of it. Also, the fact that as the street goes away from you, it appears to get narrower because that's how visual perspective works. And so that takes you right into the heart of the painting. As I said, it's not completely symmetrical. And I think one of the fun things about this is to actually notice what isn't symmetrical. The buildings to one side, to the right, are more colorful and varied in their colors than the left. And the buildings are also slightly different. Also, you will see that there is one particular street light that's quite large, kind of in the center of the painting. So the street lights are not all set up in a symmetrical arrangement. The cars on the right, lower right, you'll see those are bigger than the ones on the left, which, you know, is important or not important. And if you look all the way back down that road and you see just shadowy bits of buildings, they're not all symmetrically done. But the thing that really caught my eye when I first looked at this was the two American flags on the left. I was talking with Virginia about this because there is an artist named Child Hassam, Hassam, who did a series of paintings. It's called his Flag series. And this just reminded me of those. And I always sort of thought, what a curious subject. I mean, from my point of view, because of what I like to paint. But I really admire that series and this piece particularly. I also think the snow is the crowning touch to this piece because it does give you definitely atmosphere, which all of us saw this morning here in Maryland. And I hope that you actually go see this in person if you live locally. That's it. Back to Bill.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
And now we come back to Matt to give us a few words on Bruce Centel's piece.
Okay. It looks like I've lost my video again, but I can talk to this. Ruth Centel is a very interesting artist to me because every time I see a piece of her work, I have to make sure that I'm looking at Ruth's art because she is so versatile in all of her different mediums. You kind of get used to one artist doing oils or watercolors or acrylics, but Ruth does all, and she does a very good job with them all. This piece caught my eye for a couple of reasons, and the name of it is Maryville Fall. Oops, pardon me. Waiting for Spring. It's 16 by 20 inches. It's on canvas. And this is an acrylic painting. And the thing that really caught me by surprise, if you want to call it that, after I started looking at it, is that she uses the X factor in design that is quite appealing because she does it in a way that you know, it creeps up on you. All of a sudden you start seeing it. If you look at that, the background towards the upper portion of the canvas, you see this dark diagonal line of a tree that's falling to your right, and then you see one behind it that's falling to your left. And then as you come back down and to the front of the canvas, you see another X that draws your eye, but not as obvious, of the one broken limb that is laying close to the rocks and the stream. And then you have another juxtaposition here that I love, is the fact of the blue-green of the stream that is horizontal, and then it gets into the purples and blues that just draws your eye all the way back, creating a very nice perspective of how this horse is sitting there waiting for the rejuvenation, the rebirth of Mother Earth, if you want to call it that. The darker rocks in the foreground keeps you stable, and it makes you feel like, you know, you're actually standing there looking at the stream with all of its various movements, and then the background of just a subtle definition of the patience that the earth has in going from one season to another. I think it's a fantastic piece, and again, make sure that you get it down to to Kentlands to see all of the artwork, and especially this piece here. Thank you, Bill.
Nicely said, Matt. Now we come to another 2-for-1. Marylou Bono will talk about her own work and then talk about a piece by Jeannie Sullivan. Marylou?
Thanks. Mine and Jean, these two small pieces are hanging one on top of the other at the Arts Barn, so they're close together when you go see them. This one that you're seeing now, it's called Slipstream. I work in acrylic and mixed media and fused glass. I make mostly pendants and decorative objects. But when I started making art about 4 years ago, I experimented pouring acrylic paint and ink. And this is one of my favorite pieces that I created doing that. The pouring technique is sometimes undervalued and dismissed, but I think its concepts and variations are in use by both beginning artists and accomplished artists. I think there's a lot of examples of that we all know about. I appreciate its unpredictability and the opportunity for viewers to form their own interpretation in the patterns. The color combination that I use, the analogous colors, is one that I go to often. I think it's bold, but it's also calming, subtly calming. It's a small work. It's 8 by 8, and it's in a frame, so it does look a little bit larger than that. I'm always moved by the sea as a subject, and in this piece, I see in particular the movement of a rushing wave and the ebb and flow of the tide and splashing seawater. So Tom, if you could switch to Jean's now. This is Jean Sullivan's work called Song of Our Ancestors. Jean is a prolific mixed media and collage artist. I like that her themes and her colors are always earthy. She experiments with a lot of different techniques and subject matter. She is a traveler and a collector of her collage material, interesting papers and catalogs and maps and things. She showed me some of her collection as she's a resident artist there at the Arts Barn. I think her experiences with travel and her willingness to learn different techniques are both add dimension and contrast to her work. This piece is very nostalgic, as you can hopefully see. And it's likely a personal piece. It could be any European village or relate to any ethnic group. I see the images in the windows representing maybe those left behind from a prior era, the notes on the roof, maybe a lament for the old world and who and what we remember, maybe our roots. Her muted and shadowy colors, I think, might signify a sense of foreboding. Big sentiments in a small package is how I looked at it. And it's a very relatable theme for most of us. And it's handled very well by an experienced artist.
Thank you, Marylou. And last but not least, we come to a lovely piece done by the artist who will talk about it now, Carol Moore.
Thanks, Bill. This is a piece that I have titled The Visit. It is in an intaglio using chincolet and hand coloring. It is an 8x8. As a printmaker, I'm very interested, or as an artist, a printmaker and artist, I am very interested in the emotional connections between people and the natural world, and often my connection to the natural world, and it'll show up in a lot of my work. This piece is very close to my heart because I made it with a good friend in mind. It speaks about the symbols in nature that people assign to remember a loved one that has passed, or perhaps a moment in time. And like I said, it was created for a friend, and she told me that once when she sees these butterflies in nature fluttering by, that they're actually a visit from her mother, who passed away when she was young. And it doesn't really matter what you believe spiritually. Sometimes this imagery is just a comfort. And I always hope that this print would bring her some comfort. Aside from the content, there's a lot of processes, and they can become very complicated when trying to explain them. But this was an etching that used, or an intaglio, and another word for intaglio is etching. And in particular, this print took a lot of planning. The butterfly and the background tones were etched into a metal plate. I then inked the plate with a black and purple ink and layered it with chincolet. And that's just a fancy word for collage, and it could be any found objects, but in this case, I collaged the print with paper, different kinds of ornamental papers. So I inked the plate, then I have to layer the paper directly on the plate. And then I sprinkle rice starch, which acts as a glue. And I put a piece of wet printmaking paper on top of all of that, and I run it through an etching press together. The result is an image that is integrated and has nice, rich textures. But this piece was particularly labor intensive because if you look at it, the purple flowers and that dark burgundy, grassy textures were all paper, and they had to be cut by hand and placed on the plate, keeping in mind that I was working in reverse, because when you're doing printmaking, you work in reverse. And everything had to be an exact registration. And I was thrilled when I made it that I was able to make it work. I find that printmaking, especially intaglio printmaking, is a very indirect way to create an image. There's a lot of technical processes involved, but I believe that I must have some kind of inner scientist, because I think that sometimes that's what the medium requires. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Carol. It's nice to hear such an intensive process can create such a delicate result. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. That was our beautiful exhibit. And we have gone over time, but I did want to be able to ask just real quick a couple questions. Can anyone talk about how an aspiring artist might get started showing their own work?
Well, for me, it would be get involved with a local art league or art guild. You can make great contacts. The first meeting I went to at ALOG, were only a dozen people, and one person, everybody stood up, announced their name and their medium and what they did. Somebody said portrait painter. I had a direct contact. A friendship was started, and I've been in the league for 15 years.
Yeah, and I'd like to second what Bill is saying. I came to the Art League of Germantown as a novice painter, and showed in one of their exhibitions in Black Rock, and just find this such a supportive, generous group of people. And there's no better place to start, I don't think.
I have to say, that's the exact reason I started it, Deb. And what you just said gave me chills. I actually got a little choked up, because I know that people that are just starting are afraid to put their work out there. And I wanted there to be a safe place to do that. And the Art League's been going for 38 years now. I can't believe it. But I must say, I've seen so many people that would come to a meeting for the first time and be like, they would hold their work up like this. And I remember one time saying to one of our members who was new, so I'm just coming, I said, could you hold that up again, like longer? And she goes, you know, like this. Well, she is killing it now. That's Preetha, who I hope doesn't mind me saying that. But that really is a very good way, because you get exposed to people in all different levels. You get to hear all these presentations. I mean, not every art group works exactly the same way, but joining an art group anywhere would definitely help somebody wanting to get started. And that way you learn the ropes so that you can branch out from there. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, one more question. This is going to be a quick fire round, and then we're going to have to conclude for today. I want to ask each of the panelists, so come on back on, everybody. In one word, what inspires you? I know that's really hard, but.
Okay, I can start. For me, it's people and visiting different places that are different from what I see around. And sometimes it's just lighting on ordinary things.
Okay, Deb, that wasn't one word, but okay.
She sets the tone.
Well, I'm going to try to make it just one word, and that is nature. Can I explain a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. the main thing is that nature brings on so many different aspects or perspectives of what's around you. And it doesn't necessarily mean just a natural nature. It's the nature of the way that architecture is designed, the way that the feel that you have between the seasons. There's all, there's a whole diorama of things that you could look at. But overall, nature is what I feel I'm really involved with. It makes me do what I want to do.
Well, my answer is
Order and
anti-climatic
disorder.
people.
I think Bill and I talked on top of each other. I was going to say
Oh,
order
sorry.
and disorder.
Say that again, Tom?
Order and disorder.
Oh, okay.
My one word is controversial.
Ooh,
And I would have to say communication inspires me.
nice.
And I don't have one word, but it's one short phrase. And that's, I'm inspired by the things that stop me in my tracks, the things that get my imagination moving, and things that make me say, there's a print in that.
Great.
Okay, I wish we had more time for questions. I'm so sorry that we don't. But yeah, we've gotta cut it off. But Bill,
Well, I want to say this concludes our virtual gallery tour of Musings Over Time. I want to thank our president, Thom Germer, and all the members of the Art League that worked tirelessly behind the scenes to produce this exhibit. I also want to thank the city of Gaithersburg and Jaree Donnelly for our never-ending efforts on our behalf to make this exhibit possible. Lastly, I want to thank you, the many Facebook viewers who joined us, and extend from all our members our appreciation for attending our gallery viewing. We have enjoyed presenting it to you. I hope all that are within our local area will make an appointment to come and see the work in person at the mansion. Stay safe, stay well, and thank you.